The patient no one could save. The young man sat across from him, staring at the floor. His hands fidgeted in his lap, and his eyes were hollow. "I just don't see the point," he muttered. "Nothing will ever change." The doctor had seen this before. Endless sessions, diving into childhood trauma through digging through buried memories. Yet nothing ever changed. His patients remained trapped in cycles of hopelessness, their thoughts unchallenged, their suffering unshaken. And then, like a bolt of lightning, realization hit him. Maybe the problem wasn't buried in the past. Maybe the real problem was what was happening in the patient's mind right now. And if it was true, then maybe, just maybe, their thoughts weren't a prison. Maybe they could be rewired. He had spent years as a devoted student of psychoanalysis. The idea was simple. People's problems came from their unconscious mind, buried trauma, things they weren't even aware of. But something wasn't adding up. Sessions after sessions, he listened, he analyzed, and yet patients, they just weren't getting any better. What if people weren't suffering because of some deep hidden trauma? What if they were suffering because their thoughts were in the present moment? Thoughts like, "I'm worthless. I will always fail. There is no hope for me." What if, just like a soldier trains his body to endure hardship, a person could train their mind to think differently? This was the moment that everything changed. He decided to run a radical experiment. Instead of spending years analyzing the past, he asked his patients to delve into their thoughts. Write them down, question them, look for patterns of negativity, and then challenge them. And what happened next? Well, for the first time, his patients started improving, and fast. People who had been stuck in depression for years began to change. Why? Because their thoughts, they weren't facts, and stories could be rewritten. This single insight changed the world of mental health forever. His discoveries became the foundation of a new approach to therapy, one that rejected helplessness and gave people tools to retrain their minds. It became the gold standard for treating depression, anxiety, PTSD, and countless mental health challenges. It proves that by changing your thoughts, you could change your emotions and your life. It inspired millions to take control of their minds, rather than being controlled by them. And it started because one doctor refused to accept suffering as permanent. The man who challenged the entire field of psychology. The doctor who proved that the mind could be trained like a muscle. The pioneer that changed how we fight depression, anxiety, and mental illness. That man is Beck, father of cognitive behavioral therapy, the method that has transformed millions of lives. A man who taught the world that thoughts are not truth, they're habits. Just like any other habit, they can be changed. Your mind is powerful, but left unchecked, it will feed you stories of fear, doubt, and failure. What Dr. Beck proved was that you are not a prisoner of your thoughts. You don't have to believe everything that you think. You can observe your thoughts. You can change them. You can retrain your mind to think in a way that helps you and not hurt you. And when you do this, you take back control of your life. Welcome to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. I'm your host, Sergeant Q, and with me as always, Doc Jess.
Welcome. Thank you guys for being here.
So Jess, you knew who that was before I got to the end, right?
I did. Yes.
And if you've been with us for a while, I've done another one of these, I think, on Dr. Beck at one time, a long time ago. As I was writing it, I felt like we'd talked a little bit about his story. We may not have written a whole Q-tale on it, but we definitely talked about his story.
Yeah. Well, because cognitive behavior therapy is my bread and butter.
Right.
In my therapy and my therapeutic approach. And it's that way for several reasons. One, it's what changed my life. When I was going through my mental health journey to build my mental resilience. And it if you really dissect cognitive behavior therapy and the principles of it, it's everything that the scriptures have been teaching us for thousands of years.
Take your thoughts captive, right?
Right.
Take every thought captive.
Yeah, the Bible says to take every thought captive unto Christ. And then in Philippians 4, it talks about things that it says, think of things that are honorable and true and praiseworthy and good, right? And it's because God knew the enemy's number one way to destroy and to debilitate us is through our thought life. And so though we can't control what thoughts come into our minds, we can learn to control what we do with them.
Right.
And I'm actually, with your permission, going to change a little bit of the way that we're going to do some of this morning because of this story.
Oh no. Okay.
No.
Am I going to be another training dummy?
No. It's actually going to be my story. So this is going to be a little hard for me.
Sure. Okay.
And I think it's really important to share stories of real life examples of how cognitive behavior therapy works and how life-changing it can be. Is that cool?
Yeah, let's do it. We'll call an audible.
We'll call an audible? What's that mean?
Do you want to watch football? I thought you were a footballer.
I'm a football fan, yeah.
Oh, so an audible is when the quarterback gets a play from the coach, but he decides he sees something on the field and he wants to change the play, and so he'll call an audible and change the play, which is not what the coach had originally intended. That's a high risk, high reward.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see how risky and how rewarding this will be. Okay, so in the idea of cognitive behavior therapy, there's that's the umbrella, and there's a lot of different spin-offs of it, but it's all covered under cognitive behavior therapy. And the intense outpatient program that I went to in the summer of 2017, once I got the guts to actually step out and start working on my mental health after I went to Operation Restore Hope with Q and his wife in 2016, they did what's called cognitive processing therapy. And so what they do is they go in and we dissect what we call our index trauma. And our index trauma doesn't necessarily have to be the worst thing that we went through, but it's the first thing that caused such a detrimental trauma in our lives that we unpack. Because what happens is when you experience a major trauma, right, we talk about how our brain actually changes. Our physiologically, right, chemically, all the things, our brain actually changes. It's not just this figment of our imagination. And in this process, we had to do some really hard things, and we had to do group counseling and we had to do one-on-one counseling. And in this process, I had to narrate this index trauma from start to finish. And then my one-on-one counselor would do some of these, what we call Socratic questioning. And that's when we start to challenge some thoughts that we have and some stuck points that we have. So a couple of my stuck points were women shouldn't be on the front lines of war. They're a distraction to men. And that if it wasn't for me being at this place at this time, this specific soldier wouldn't have died. And so in summary, my index trauma was, I was during my Lioness years, if you guys are followers, you know I was a Lioness in the military during the Operation Iraqi War Freedom. And so it was in 2004, and a female insurgent pretended to be pregnant. And as American soldiers, we follow the Geneva Convention, which is the general rules of war, and we honor their religion and their religious preference that our male soldiers don't put their hands on their female civilians. It's a part of their religion. And so she skated through and was a suicide bomber, and she blew up 28 soldiers. And so our command decided, okay, we're going to take 6 females that don't have kids yet, right? So I was young, I was 20 years old, and I didn't have any kids yet. And so I volunteered because I met the criteria. And so they took us out into the remote desert, and we learned advanced hand-to-hand combat. We learned how to very thoroughly search vehicles and people. And so half of the things I would do as a Lioness is I would go on raids with the infantrymen and with some of the other military personnel who would go do raids to find the bad guys, okay? And part of the reason why we did that was to be there to search the women if they needed us to, and to also be there for accountability, because there was some really bad rumors going around that our male soldiers were doing deplorable things to the women. And I'll tell you what, hundreds and hundreds of men I was deployed with wouldn't even think to do that. So side note, I don't know where those rumors came from. Maybe they were true, but I was there to help, right, for accountability. And so the other part of this job as a Lioness is we would be stationed at two different ends of this major road. My battle buddy, we always went in battle buddies. My battle buddy, female Lioness, would be at one side of the checkpoint and I would be at the other. And we would be sitting behind these barricades, right, of protection. And when they called us out to search a female, you know, you're like, okay, I'm getting ready. You got to get yourself ready. You go out and you search, right? So my index trauma is one time I went out to search a female, and that was, I'll get into that later, but as soon as I started walking back to the barricade, we started getting incoming mortars. And I hear a voice, and the voice said, "Cover Ainley." And my last name at that time was Ainley, and we go by last names. And so a soldier started running to cover me, and he got shrapnel to the neck and to an opening from his Kevlar, and he died about 3 feet from me. And I've talked about this in my book that I've shared with you guys. Mm-hmm. But what I'm sharing today is my process of taking back that control of those stuck points that I had in my mind from that. And so as I'm narrating this story, right, one of my stuck points was women shouldn't be on the front lines of war, because I felt like because I was a woman, they were covering me. And as we're starting to unpack this, and in my group therapy, some of the guys started asking questions like, were there any more medics in the area where you were at? No. And what do soldiers do when they get incoming? What do they do to the medic?
They cover the medic.
They cover the medic.
Because if he goes down, everybody goes down.
Right. And so because I was a female and a medic, they kind of got 2 for 1. They didn't have to put a medic on that checkpoint because I was a female and I was a medic. And so it is 100% possible that they were having him cover me because I was a medic and not because I was a female. And so for the last 10 years, I have been living with survivor's guilt, thinking, oh my gosh, I've wasted so much emotion and so many hardships on this stuck one way of thinking that he died because I'm a female on the front lines of war, when really he died. And then they went around talking about what is the most honorable way for a man to die. If I were to ask you, what would be the top 3 most honorable ways to die?
Well, number 1 would be in defense of his brothers in arms. 2 would be in defense of his family, and 3rd would be in defense of someone who was innocent, who couldn't protect themselves.
Okay, and so, right, that's 9 out of 10 men's response to what is the most honorable way for a man to die, right? So not only did he die in defense of a brother or sister in arms, he died in defense of a medic, because if something happened to me and something happened to 3 of his brothers in arms, nobody could fix them, nobody could save their lives. So by me sitting in my pity party, oh, I shouldn't have been there, I'm taking away literally his honor of why he put his life on the line and he chose to do that. And just opening up my viewpoint changed my entire life. And then she had me dissect the part about, well, women, shouldn't be on the front lines of war, because I had to also break down my journey of walking out of the barricade and going to search this woman, right? So this woman had these kids in the car, and they were scared and they were shaken, and she was shaken and she was so scared. And I could only see this much of her face, and I could tell she was so scared. And so I got the interpreter over and I said, hey, please tell her that I'm just here to make things safe, that I'm here to make her feel safe, that she doesn't have to worry about any men touching her. I'm here to do that, and so she can feel safe that I'm just gonna check her in these certain areas just to make sure, because we want to keep everybody, even her children, safe. I brought her kids a cold bottle of water, and as soon as I did that, the kids were like, "Oh my gosh!" And so I had to walk through that, and I saw it from such a different light. This professional great counselor helped me see this, that I was there to also help the innocent civilians feel safer, feel taken care of. And when it's just men there, the kids and the women are so scared, but having a female's presence lowers that just a little bit. And so it gave me a little bit more pride that there is a place for women in very special, specific circumstances to be on the front lines of war. And just those 3 paradigm shifts in this situation literally changed the whole trajectory of the next 10 years of my life. And that's my personal story about cognitive behavior therapy. And we're gonna give you some really good tools too. I don't want to take up the whole podcast, but
No, I thought that was great. That was a great audible, actually.
It was
Jess, 'cause it leads right into what you're going to talk about.
okay.
And you've really just given everybody in a real world example of this is what it looks like. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of it.
All right, you guys. So one of the things that we really harp on, and it's for a reason, is why morning routines matter for our mental resilience. Take it away, Q.
Yeah. So in the morning, when you first wake up, like I'm talking first wake up, the alarm goes off, you get out of bed, you turn the alarm off. When your feet hit the floor, those 20 minutes start, the time starts ticking. You have 20 minutes that your brain is in alpha wave state. Alpha wave state is when your brain is the most capable of taking in new information. It's when you can set your intention for the day. You're programming your brain on what you want it to focus on. And whatever you focus on in that 20 minutes, you're going to find more of throughout the day. So if you wake up and you start scrolling on Facebook, your brain says, oh, I'm getting dopamine through scrolling on Facebook. And you're going to do that all day long. And you're going to have no productivity. You're going to cause yourself stress.
Or you're going to set your standards for that. And so the rest of your day is going to feel like depressed because you're not constantly getting that dopamine hit, right?
Right, exactly. Because your brain says, oh, I just get dopamine from this Facebook or from the phone, TikTok, whatever it is. Or like what I used to do is get up and I would start answering emails immediately and going through messages and emails. And I'd be stressed out all day because I'm introducing stress into my life first thing in the morning. And then it would cause me stress the rest of the day. Once I figured this out, and I do 3 things that are non-digital, kind of non-digital, because I listen to motivational speakers for the first 10 minutes, and then I do my Bible study for the next 10 minutes. So that's my 20 minutes. So I'm listening to these professional motivational speakers because I want to do better on stage. And so I listen to them, and then I go straight into doing my Bible study, but I'm listening to that through my phone, but I'm not engaging and interacting on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm just turning it on and then going about my day. I turn on the motivational speeches and I do my hygiene routine. And then I turn on my Bible study as I'm drinking my coffee and taking my notes. That way I'm engaging my brain and I'm learning something. I'm learning how to become a better motivational speaker, and I'm spending my time with God trying to unpack and understand scripture, which helps me in every area of my life. But what really helps me is I'm teaching my brain to seek dopamine through discipline of action instead of distraction on my phone. And that right there is a game changer. You don't have to believe me. You can do it for yourself. Do it for 5 days. Just do it for 5 days and see what happens.
Yeah. And I also want to add that you're really, really big on those first 20 minutes, which is great. But it's kind of like when you go to the gym and you lift weights for 20 minutes, the calories that you burn for up to a couple hours after that are still like you're still burning more calories than you would if you were just sitting. So it's actually been proven that first hour of your day is extremely important to do intentional things. So those first 20 minutes are like the boost, the most important, but it's kind of like it then carries over to the other 40 minutes of your first hour of your day.
You're absolutely right. But when people think like, oh, first hour of my day, I can't do that. I can't do it now.
No, and you don't have to.
But you can do 20 minutes.
Yes.
And here's the thing. If you get up at 5 a.m., well, not anymore. Now you get up at 4:40 because you can't add anything to your day. You're always going to feel, because you have a routine already. So you're already going to be stressed out. You're not going to be able to get.
Don't overwhelm our audience with 5 a.m. Okay, let's start. If you usually wake up at 7 a.m.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Savage.
At 7 a.m. Now you get up at 6:40.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, because you can't add anything else into your morning. So you have to back up just by 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Just 20 minutes, that's it. And I actually created what's called the Day One Challenge. You can go to dayonechallenge.com. I fully automated this process for you. Yes, it costs you money, but that's actually for your benefit. Because if I gave it to you for free, you wouldn't do it.
Nope.
Studies prove it. 9% of you guys would actually complete it.
Yep.
But if you pay for it, there's a chance that 60% of you, and if I charge you enough money, like $1,000, which I'm not doing, then there's a 90% chance that you're going to finish it. But that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
So I have to charge you something so you have skin in the game. Whole nother podcast that we'll talk about another time.
Yeah.
But let's get into some of this other stuff, Jess, before we run out of time.
Yeah. So how you wake up your brain, it matters. So your brain is most malleable in the first hour. It's primed for either chaos or control. Okay. Most people start their days checking social media, emails, or stress scrolling. Okay. Instead of being intentional. So the first thing that you do either builds resilience or it depletes you. One of two things. And I don't know if we told you, but today's podcast is all centered around controlling the controllables. Okay, some things are completely out of our control, and the things we're talking about today are 100% in your control. Okay, so some simple morning routines that we're talking about in those first 20 minutes could look like this. A, just avoiding the dopamine trap of scrolling.
Yeah.
Just avoid it for 5 days.
Yep.
Okay. 2, hydrate before caffeine. So water has been proven to wake up the brain. Okay. And there's some other evidence that supports why water before caffeine is beneficial. One of them is it supports digestion and metabolism for those of us who are trying to shave off a few pounds. Okay. It also rehydrates you after you sleep. It improves your cognitive function, your blood pressure, and your circulation, and it reduces that caffeine crash, and it's been proven to reduce anxiety for the rest of your day.
Okay.
No joke. So the average is 12 to 16 ounces. Anybody who is watching this podcast right now can start their day drinking 12 ounces of water. No excuses. Okay, so do that.
Yeah, make that in your daily routine. First part,
Okay.
You get up, drink that water. That can be one of the goals.
Yeah, that's one of the when this guy was like super intensively like saying, if you want to be a part of my Christian business development program, you got to do this. And I was like, okay, fine. I did it and changed my life. Okay. So I'm not bitter. I'm actually very thankful and grateful. So thank you for being obnoxiously persistent.
Just being a Marine. Yeah.
Yeah. Obnoxious is it. Man, when the Marines would walk into the dining facility, everybody knew.
Of course.
They're freaking
command the room.
cocky.
Yeah, of course.
I love them. I love
better than you.
Bye.
We're better than you. And we know it.
You know how many raids I did with Marines?
A lot. I'm sure.
Okay, so you're not better than me. I'm a part of you.
You actually are. Actually, you really are. The Lioness program was started by the Marines.
By the Marines, yes.
And we adopted the Army into it. And so it was really cool. I was at, where was I? Like 6 months ago, I went to, back in October, I went to the Marine Corps History Museum. And I was walking through it and I saw this whole section that was dedicated to the Lioness program and the Army that they brought in and adopted in. So I got to see, and I sent some photos to Jess of the Lioness unit doing action. So Jess and her unit is literally immortalized in the United States Marine Corps history, which means that your legacy will live forever because the Marine Corps will live forever.
Yes. And there were no, where I was deployed, there was no female Marines deployed. So that's why they had to pull from us.
Right.
So I'm like I'm literally like 1 in a million. Anyways, so I've also adopted your cockiness. All right, you guys, a couple more little quick things you can do in the morning for
You
your.
don't want to overwhelm them, Jess.
I know, but just
All right.
you can rewatch this or you can take some notes. Take notes.
What I've learned is that our viewers are slow learners. So
People
just
are
kidding.
in general.
Yeah,
People don't like to do hard things. Okay.
What I've learned is that when we give them too much information, it becomes decision fatigue. And so we've got to be mindful of not giving them too much.
Okay, so we're not going to do this next 2 pages.
Yeah, I know. Next 2 pages, guys.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay. So another thing is sunlight and movement, even 5 minutes. Another personal story is I had to start small, and I didn't do 20 minutes. I started with 10.
Didn't you just walk out on your porch in the beginning?
No, I wanted to ground, so I walked out on the grass, and I did 2 to 3 minutes of breathing exercises. So I looked up on my YouTube 2 to 3 minutes of breathing exercises, and I just sat out there like a weirdo,
Like a hippie,
and I put my feet in the ground, and right? But it was life-changing. So great. Journaling or self-reflection or cold exposure. I got to that eventually. Okay. These are just some ideas to start your day.
Just
make
pick
them
one.
Simple. No.
Pick one in the beginning.
No.
One of these ideas in the beginning.
No, pick 3 tiny things. So if it's my 3 tiny things that you made me do was I drank 12 ounces of water when I woke up. I didn't hit the snooze. That was one thing.
Didn't hit the snooze. That was one, right?
Didn't hit the snooze. Made a commitment for 45 days, no snooze. Drank 12 ounces of water, went outside and did my breathing. That's what I did for 45 days. And it was something I knew I could do without excuse, 5 minutes every single day. And then after those 45 days, I started habit stacking, Atomic Habits, shout out. And then I started cold exposure and I started reading. I mean, I've always read my Bible in the morning.
Right.
But I added that into it.
You're a lot more intentional when you have it in the daily routine.
Yes.
Which is crazy because I used to think, I read my Bible every day. Once I started tracking it with my routine, I was like, oh man, I miss days all the time. And so once I started tracking it with my morning routine, I got a lot better at it.
Okay, so in future episodes, we're going to talk about digital boundaries. Don't avoid that one, you guys. It's very, very important.
Yes.
Nutrition.
Digital boundaries, I love it, especially 20 minutes before you go to bed and 20 minutes when you wake up. Like those times are super important. And then we break it out to the hour. But
yeah,
the digital boundaries around your sleep are really important.
Yeah, we're gonna dive more into nutrition and how the gut-brain connection, what you eat affects your emotions. You guys, it's like gravity. You don't have to believe in gravity, but if you jump off a building, you're gonna smack down.
Wile E. Coyote that bad.
Okay, you can choose to. Oh, I don't believe in all this. At the end of the day, the consequences are they're gonna be there. And just like if you say, well, I don't believe in gravity, you don't have to believe in these things, but it's been proven over and over and over again. And so don't become some old lady that is a burden to your family because you refuse to listen.
Yeah.
That's what we have for you today, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure you like, comment, let us know what you want us to talk about, subscribe, and as always,
we are here to educate, empower, and encourage you on your mental health journey. For the Mental Health Janitors, I'm Sergeant Q.
I'm Doc Jess.
And we're out.